Next, we'll look at Fiddler extensions, and these were either created by Eric Lawrence himself or third parties that you can get on the Fiddler website. All extensions are, as they are .NET assemblies that are installed in the scripts folder of Fiddler. They are public classes that implement particular interfaces, so when Fiddler starts, it finds assemblies, sees if those public classes in that assembly implement any of the interfaces, and then the extensions will be installed. And again, this allows us to write general .NET code, C#, VB.NET, to influence how Fiddler is going to behave. One of the extensions we'll look at is syntax highlighting. So this was in addition to the normal view in the inspectors for HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. It does a lot of color coding of the syntax to make it a lot easier to read. There's also a JavaScript formatter, which will nicely format and unminify, which is very helpful if you need to be able to look through some source, but it comes from a server minified. It's very handy to use that JavaScript formatter. There's a content blocker. You can use this to test what happens if a firewall was blocked, access to a particular host, or if it happened to be down, you can see how the browser would react. And lastly, there's a gallery extension where you can see thumbnails of all the selected sessions that contain images, which is kind of nice. Let's look at some of the Fiddler extensions in action. So we're back in Fiddler. We'll open up our browser. We'll go to a web page. Let's look at the syntax viewer first. So as I look at a particular page, I can look at the markup so you get the standard view in Notepad. I can also see the syntax view. So you can see I've got nice color coding for comments in different parts of the actual markup, which is very handy. We're looking at the site after we did performance improvements. So if you recall, we've got a response coming back where everything is minified. So let's look what this would look like using the JavaScript formatter. So as we right click, we can say make JavaScript pretty. We'll go into the raw view and you can see that now all of the spacing has been added back. So it has formatted it in a way that it's easy to read. The content block extension is useful so we can see if a particular host were to be blocked or was down, what would happen to the browser and how would it respond. So I've added the content block extension. We'll see it's enabled at this point. Let's go to the Pluralsight homepage. Now as we look at the requests in Fiddler, I can see the s.pluralsight.com is most likely their CDN. So if I were to right click and say I want to block this host and see what would happen, now we can go back into the browser and we'll do a refresh. Now we can see not only were images blocked, but the style sheets were blocked as well, which would be a very major problem. So we may want to implement, in this case, you can do some fallbacks. So now I can see that I would have a problem if my CDN weren't available. I could explore techniques for detecting that particular things were not downloaded correctly and then fall back and pull them locally instead of from my CDN. So the content block extension is useful for seeing if this were blocked, what exactly is going to happen to my web page. Another useful extension is the gallery extension. And in this case, what it allows us to do, we'll go to the gallery tab, and as we select a series of images, we're going to see the thumbnails for all the selected images. And then once I determine which one I'm interested in, I can click and it will actually take me into the image view. And I can see if I right click, it will take me into the inspector so I can see the actual request that led to that particular thumbnail.